Every so often you come across a movie that fully embraces the ridiculous nature of its own premise. And in all honesty, the Meg movies have become just that. They are the Fast and Furious of shark movies. And whether or not you are able to accept that intentional ridiculousness or not is completely up to the viewer. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it. Do it!
Meg 2: The Trench isn't a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. It is actually a theatrical sequel to The Meg from 2018. I have to be honest, I'm genuinely shocked that a movie like The Meg even got a sequel to begin with. I just don't remember that movie having much buzz back in 2018. I personally found it to be pretty forgettable.
I don't get it.
But honestly, when it comes right down to it, I have a confession to make. I have a soft spot for shark movies. They are a guilty pleasure subgenre of film that I can typically find enjoyment in, even when they aren't particularly well made. But for whatever reason, the original Meg movie just didn't connect with me as a viewer. And I think it has a lot to do with it being an over-the-top, more cartoonish version of a shark movie.
That makes sense.
I just find myself enjoying the more grounded, survival story shark movies a bit more. And much to my surprise, there are moments in the Meg 2 where they have a little bit of that going on. So much so that I do think the Meg 2 is an improvement over the original, even though that's not really saying much. Meg 2: The Trench follows the returning Jonas Taylor, played by Jason Statham, who leads a research team on an exploratory dive into the deepest depths of the ocean. Their voyage spirals into chaos when a secret mining operation threatens their mission by unleashing a colossal prehistoric threat on the modern world. Now, much to my surprise, the best part of this movie in my eyes was actually a portion of it that had nothing to do with sharks.
A what?
And that's when our team finds themselves stranded miles below the surface in a deep ocean trench. And they quite literally have to walk along the bottom of the ocean to reach possible salvation. I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's been enough movies who have truly tapped in to how dark and scary the bottom of the ocean actually is. To me, we should have more movies that explore that feeling of isolation and fear of the unknown that comes with such a terrifying location. There's literally no other place like it on Earth.
Okay, so the scariest environment imaginable. Thanks. That's all you gotta say. Scariest environment imaginable.
The Meg 2 does try to tap into that a little bit, but it ultimately once again feels underutilized. I think that Kristen Stewart movie, Underwater, was the closest to giving me what I actually want from a concept like that. But I think it's something that filmmakers, more specifically horror filmmakers, need to dip their toes into. Hell, maybe I'll even do it myself one day. We'll consider that a little tease.
And I know when you got something brewing. I know it.
The Meg 2 does do a passable job by making this situation probably the most interesting part of this movie. As the movie progresses, however, they fall right back into a lot of the same things that they did in the first Meg movie. This movie is very much a Sci-Fi Channel original with a budget. There's absolutely nothing to speak of as it pertains to meaningful storytelling. But you kind of expect that also when you decide to watch a movie like this.
I knew it!
I made the comparison to Fast and the Furious because it feels like this film's main goal was to just one-up whatever they did last time. Instead of just one Meg, there's 3 Megs. Instead of just Megs, there's a bunch of giant prehistoric creatures running around and causing chaos. In fact, this movie very much took inspiration from Jurassic Park this time out. They're even flirting with the idea of humans being able to train or tame these prehistoric killing machines. We are literally one Chris Pratt away from being a full-on Jurassic World movie.
You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
I have to reiterate something because I don't think this is said enough, but I do think Jason Statham has made a lot of bad movies better based purely on his bad screen presence. He seems to have found his niche in these types of movies, and that's fine. But I would love to see him in more things that better utilize his badassery. I recommend that everybody please go watch Guy Ritchie's Wrath of Man to see exactly what I'm talking about. But regardless of all of that, it's always great to see Statham. It's especially cool when we see him riding a jet ski and fighting giant prehistoric sharks.
We give them what they want.
And make no mistake about it, they take that confrontation to new, ridiculous levels. I'm not going to lie, this movie is fun at times in a check your brain at the door kind of way. It's B-movie spectacle through and through, and that's fine. There's always a place for movies like that. But my biggest criteria, whenever I'm deciding whether or not a movie was memorable or worthy of me watching again, is did that movie show me something that I've never seen before? And Meg 2: The Trench absolutely 100% does not.
We ain't found shit.
Don't get me wrong, this movie is very self-aware, and it's not trying to be anything other than what it is. But that only takes me personally so far. There's only so many cliches and cheesy lines of dialogue that one person can take in a sitting. And unsurprisingly, this movie is packed full of both. Kind of typical for movies like this, none of the characters are all that memorable or interesting. So when the chaos starts to ensue, does it really matter who lives and who dies? Not really.
If he dies, he dies.
Even with the CGI monsters, it didn't feel like the film fully committed to this movie being a full-blown monster movie. There's actually a surprising amount of time spent away from the monsters, which would be great if that time was better utilized building these characters up properly, but it's not. I mean, they try, but it doesn't really work. So it kind of makes you feel like most of these human characters weren't involved at all if that's all they were going to do with them. It's the old King Kong vs. Godzilla dilemma. Are human characters really necessary in a movie like this?
Absolutely f***ing not.
I would have been fine with Jason Statham and Jason Statham alone, to be honest, because most of the other characters are nothing more than filler anyway. What's funny is that I've already heard a lot of people say that the last 20 minutes or so of this movie is their favorite part. And that's where most of the shark chaos ensues. And some of it is fun, but if I'm being honest, by the time we get to it, it does feel a little bit too little too late.
Not impressed.
The last 20 minutes or so also feels like the filmmakers just wanted to rehash some of the things they did in the first Meg movie. A good portion of it felt very familiar and frankly, once again, forgettable. I think when it comes to shark movies, or even monster movies in general, I typically, personally, just enjoy the less is more approach. This movie is nothing more than a big-budget, cartoonish exploitation flick. And to me, a little bit more subtlety would have gone a long way. You don't have to show me so much. They should have built these monsters up in my mind, so when I eventually do see them, it means a little bit more. The Meg, the creature itself, doesn't feel special in its own movie, which is kind of unfortunate considering the thought of a creature like that actually existing is terrifying. I guess I kind of just wish they took a different approach with these Meg movies, but we're already 2 movies in, and obviously there's no signs of scaling back. I think some people will find surface level enjoyment out of a movie like this, but I personally left the theater feeling next to nothing, and that's why I'm going to give Meg 2: The Trench the Careless Sam Gerard.
I don't care. Y'all be cool. Nah.